WEEI Late Night
on WEEI.
Boston's Sports Original.
I think there's too much at stake for either side to test the patience of fans any more than they already have. And I think they're going to get something done. I think, time is obviously of the essence, but nothing gets done until the 11th hour in these things. And I'm not saying it's tomorrow or the next day, but I would think that within the next week or two, something will get done. I'd like to believe that because I think with the state of the game, both sides knowing that you need to speed things up, you need to get more action back in this game. Nobody has any patience coming out of a pandemic for billionaires fighting with millionaires.
The second hour on Boston Sports Original, 93.7 WEEI. It's KJ Late Night. Thank you so much for hanging out. Still to come, Tom Brady is still setting the NFL's coffers on fire, and there may be a reason why they want him to come back in some corners. That's coming at 11:17. That was Joe Buck talking about his thoughts on how, look, the fan base is getting very impatient when it comes to baseball, not getting things done, and how this could be a bigger blow than even 94 for those who remember. God, that Montreal Expos team was incredible. But according to ESPN's Jeff Passan, he says, look, Major League Baseball's asked the Major League Baseball Players Association for the ability to eliminate hundreds of minor league playing jobs in its latest proposal between the negotiations between the two sides. Now, before you throw your tomatoes at me, hear me out. I've always said that when people are discussing how much billionaires make and how do they make all that much money, sometimes I say either one of two things. Are you willing to pay the amount of taxes that they pay? Or if they don't pay taxes, if you think that's the case, are you willing to pay the amount to the accounting firm to make sure that can happen? Like, either way, you got to give up a lot of money when you get a lot of money. It works that way. It works that way. And so I've always said, and I've said this religiously, that there are really four pillar posts in Major League Baseball that hold up the entire sport. The Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Cubs. You put a couple of smaller reinforcements in there. I'll put the Cardinals there. I'd put the Giants in there. The Braves do pretty well. I gave you 8 teams out of everybody else. And what's happening is, and what's been happening is, hey, Yankees, Red Sox, boy, everybody gets behind that. Pirates, Marlins, look what Tampa's going through. Tampa just said, can we please play some of our games in Montreal? They'll even give us baguettes and feed us well. No. And for those who remember how the whole Tampa situation came about, was Tampa built that mausoleum that's standing when the Giants threatened to leave San Francisco in the late 80s. And that's been up since the late 80s. That's why it's such a horrible place to play baseball. I don't even know if it's really even safe to play foosball in there. But these are some of the things that Major League Baseball is facing under the surface. And so I'm pulling out the payrolls between what it's supposed to be this year and what it was last year just for the 26-man roster. Because, again, Major League Baseball is saying we need to kill some of these down-the-line jobs paying up to 180 different minor league players. So the Baltimore Orioles, their 26-man payroll at the end of 2021 was $13.8 million for 26 guys. You know, you ever go through, you go through the drive-through and it's like 4 for whatever the price is or 5 for, they usually have the matching numbers. Well, imagine you get like a 5 for 5, but you've got 15 guys in the car eating that one 5 for 5 meal. That's the Baltimore Orioles. But they still have to play 162 games. They still got to hit the road. They still got to host the Yankees and the Red Sox and potentially pay up to 180 people who are not good enough to make a team that lose 110 games a year. Well, this year, their 26-man payroll is scheduled to be $23 million. They are almost doubling their payroll for 26 guys. Why would you not ask for some relief for, hey, if the other 179 guys can't make the franchise, can we whittle that number down, please?
Something smells funny.
It's economics. So look, we love the game. We love the stories of players. We've got one literally here on our staff in Lou Maloney, the local kid who plays for the hometown club. Jerry Remy, the same thing. But this is a billion dollar business now. And if my payroll was $13 million last year, and then you're going to tell me it's doubling the next year, and nobody's coming to the games and we're losing? The one thing baseball does not want to introduce, but I'm sure it's floating around, and it did in the 90s, it's the C word, contraction. Does Major League Baseball potentially have to start looking at regions versus your local town having a ball club? Look at the Marlins. $16 million last year. It's supposed to be $55 million opening day. That's just for 26 guys, not the other 150 that you're trying to keep domestically. There are teams, listen, some markets are just too small to keep up with everybody else. It's just the nature of things. Places like Pittsburgh and Cleveland, you're really your historic Rust Belt, right? Demographic shift. Things have changed. It's why people love Austin. And why people are still staying in Boston like this. We're hanging on. How many of your friends have said, like, oh, gosh, after that last big snow, oh, gosh, I got to get at it. No, you don't want to leave Boston long term. Trust me. It'll be okay, but look, it's one of the few historic cities that's kept its populations. Pittsburgh, no. Cleveland, no. Minneapolis, no. Oakland, no. Kansas City, flat. The Royals' payroll last year, 26-man roster, $52 million. Okay. $72 million scheduled for the 26-man roster going into 2022. I'm not saying this is why, but this could be a reason why pitchers and catchers are not reporting in the next day or two. When only a handful hold up everything. That's why I've always said, like, hey, if the Red Sox want to spend $200 million on salary, go ahead and do it. You know why? Because it don't pay for losing. I mean, the Dodgers figure that out. You say, you know what? We're just going to, who cares? We've got to pay $270 million to win ourselves a World Series. At least we're holding up our part of the bargain. If Major League Baseball could have it if they could have it any way, it would always be the Red Sox and Yankees to see who goes against in the World Series against the Dodgers or Cubs. Like, if they could have it every year the same way, it would be that way. I mean, if you look at Shohei Ohtani, people are like, we haven't seen anything like this in our lifetimes. Well, guess what? Because nobody's watching Angels games. Nobody's watching them. And this just might be, and I'm just going to go into some people's, I'm going to dig into behinds, is where the joy of the sport has kind of been removed for all the analytics. People sit around and talk about baseball, they sound like Kraftwerk, the group. It's like, it's like, hey, did you see Maury Will steal a base? Did you see Henderson steal third? You don't hear those conversations anymore. It's why kids are not playing the games that they used to, and baseball has become even more expensive to play for youth. It's probably part of the reason why the RBI program can't really take off the way that baseball's wanted it to take off. Manicuring fields, I mean, I've walked through Jim Rice Field a couple of times. I'm like, man, this field is named after Jim Rice. Like, can we get this cleaned up a little over here? And it has been done. But if you look at when baseball was its most successful and when it was its most profitable, it's post Jackie Robinson up until about the last days of Ken Griffey, Frank Thomas, those guys. Bonds. And then you just saw what happened. They can't recreate another Poppy. You're not going to create another Poppy. That's not happening. So if I'm an owner of, say, the Tampa Bay Rays, and I say, well, you know, my payroll for my 26-man last year was $44 million, and now this year it's scheduled to be $70 million. So, yeah, from a nostalgia and entertaining perspective, who doesn't want to see baseball? Who doesn't want to be able to hop on the green line and see a kid maybe going for their first time? That's the joy of the game. That's all behind the fence. But what really goes on is, hey, look, they got to double their payroll and no new money is coming in. It's going to be a tough road to hoe, but we'll see. Or they may be going for that letter C. Contraction. KJ Late Night here on WEEI, still to come. What happened on the Greg Hill show that just, I think it went a little too far. That's coming in 25 minutes, but right now it's time to trend with Justin.
Gresh and Keith, weekdays 10 to 2.
Now, here's what's trending.